Hey guys, welcome back to a new Up High YouTube video. In this video, I want to talk a little bit about Panerai and why there isn't currently a watch in their lineup that I would add to my collection or past catalog for that matter, but it comes so close. In fact, there's two models that I've narrowed down, the Panerai PAM01372, which is the Radiomir 1940, and also the PAM676, which is the Luminor Due. Luminor Due. Those are my two favorite watches in their past catalog. They're discontinued at this point in time. And the reason why I bring up these two watches, let's get the elephant out of the room first. The biggest reason is because of price. Now, both of these watches, they're 42 millimeters. And the PAM676 measures in at 10.5 millimeters thick, while the PAM512 measures it at 11.5 millimeters thick, which is 1 millimeter more than the previous. I think both of these are super acceptable. I don't see any issue with the wearability on these at all. I mean, 42 millimeters, that's pretty much the perfect size for a Panerai. It's about as small as you can get unless you buy the current Quaranta in the collection, which is like 10,000 Canadian dollars. And when it comes to prices, compared to $10,000 to, yes, you can get a 40 millimeter 12.5 millimeters thick. This one is the Quaranta in the current collection, the reference number 1372. Compared to the previous 676 and also the 512, they're priced at 5.5 Canadian on a Chrono 24 right now. That's double the price for, I guess, to have your name on the paper, and also 2 millimeters smaller in the diameter of the watch, which I don't think is a big issue. I think 42 millimeters will just suit my skinny Asian wrist just fine. I'm currently not wearing a watch. It's pretty late at night. I know I should probably put on a watch. Actually, let me be right back. Boom! I think with the Quaranta, given its price, I would just go ahead and rule it out. I mean, $10,000 for a brand new Panerai. I don't want to jinx the depreciation of these watches because I really like Panerai as a brand, but I don't love it enough to put all my eggs in the buy retail basket when it comes to Panerai. So that leads me to looking into the 676 and also the 512, which is the main topic I want to cover in this video. Now, going a little bit in depth with the 676, the Panerai Luminor Due. This Due in the name, it's so close to perfect. If only it didn't have the Due in the name. Now, for those of you guys that don't know, if you don't study Panerai recently introduced the Due line within its Luminor collection. Now, Luminor is supposed to be its very much masculine model in its core lineup, obviously, except for the submersible, which has the case profile of Luminor, but the bezel is a lot more macho. The Luminor is characterized by its very, very strong and unique crown guard where you can lift the side to be able to access the crown. When you push it down, you cannot touch the crown anymore. And it's also characterized by its angular and thick lugs. On the other hand, the Radiomir predates the Luminor in history, where it was before the time when the strong lugs came out, and instead the Italian military affiliated with it has laser welded on these very skinny lugs on it. It wears much more like a elegant and dressy watch, albeit it's still having a very cool profile. But between the two, I much more prefer the lugs on the Luminor and also the crown guard on the Luminor. Now, with that being said, in recent years, Panerai has added that Due word to the names of some Luminor models. What that Due name is meant to mean is it's a smaller model. They started introducing 38s and 40 millimeters, but with all the Luminor Dues, their water resistance is a unified 30 meters, which is splash resistance. I get that the chances of you getting water damage is not very high, especially if you're just like, washing your hand, maybe wearing it out when it's rainy sometimes, but I've always owned watches with more than 100 millimeters of water resistance, except for the time I owned a Grand Seiko SBGW231, I think. The one with the manual wind, the 37 millimeters with the cream off-white dial. And the only reason I sold that watch was because I owned it for like only a weekend, or maybe it was a week and I wore it out on the weekend. But I was so scared of water damaging it the whole time I was wearing it. I had it on a NATO strap too, which is like my favorite. Gray Seabill NATO is my absolute must-have EDC. So I was wearing that. I went on a hike with it actually. Thank God I didn't scratch it. But the whole time I was worried. I was worried if my sweats would get into the movement. I don't know if this is normal, but coming back to it, I think 30 meters of water resistance is just way too little, which really is a shame because I think the 676 is such a perfect package. It's 10.6 millimeters, so it's not too thick. It's 42 millimeters, so anyone's wrist can pretty much fit it unless you're huge. And it's got a beautiful movement in the back as well. It's using the Panerai 1000, which is a manual wind movement that is in-house to Panerai. And the case back is transparent as well. You can see everything going on. It's such a beautiful watch. It's got a sandwich sunburst dial, which is a little bit more on the dressy side, but it's still such a cool watch. And if only it wasn't 30 meters of water resistance, it would be the perfect Panerai for me. It'd be a no-brainer. But because it can't stand water that well, that has led me to research for my hopefully replacement Panerai, which it isn't because it has its own issues as well. Let's talk about the Panerai 512. Now, onward to the Panerai 512, which is my beloved, well, I don't have one, but Radiomir 1940. Right away, with the Radiomir name, you might expect it to be a lot more of a slim and dressy profile. However, with that being said, I am happy to say that this watch actually has the very masculine, muscular lugs that the Luminor is known to have. Something about the 1940 in its name. Whereas in the Luminor range, the word Due just means death to all water resistance for that watch. The Radiomir, when it comes to 1940, just means it has these very signature strong lugs. These can also be seen in 44mm versions for sure. I think there might also be like a 45, 6, 7, 8. I mean, those are just way too big for me. I don't really look into them because I can't sustain them. But if you guys have bigger wrists and you're looking to pick up a Radiomir 1940 with those characterized lugs, but without the crown guard that Luminor has, then you might want to look into the Radiomir 1940s. And I kind of spoiled it. So the only difference between this one and the Luminor Due is that the Radiomir 1940 does not have that very characteristic lugs where you open it and then you like twist it and you hatch it down. It just got regular, like, I think it's screw in. I'm pretty sure it's screw in because this watch is 100 meters water resistance, which is amazing. It's a watch that I can wear without worrying about it the whole time. With that being said, this watch still has its own issues, very minor issues. The movement inside. It's also got a beautiful display case back, and this movement is, I don't think this is debatable. I think just objectively, it's a better looking movement. It's a more interesting and more refined movement than the P1000, which is Panerai's in-house manual wind. This uses the P999/1, and this is a Piaget in-house movement. Quick crash course, Panerai and Piaget are both owned by Richemont, the group. And I guess Panerai borrowed this movement from Piaget, not very sure why. It's a beautiful movement, I'm not complaining about it. And this watch is currently selling for 5.5k Canadian on Chrono24. Now here's my biggest issue. When I have to service this movement, and if I buy this watch, it's going to be my first PAM, and I think it's like the perfect PAM for me, so I'm incentivized to keep it, and if I'm keeping it, I got to service it. When I need to service this movement, it's a Piaget movement. I have zero experience with Piaget, except for knowing that they make jewelry, not really watches. I mean, there's the Piaget Polo, but I've never seen anyone other than the other guy from Vancouver, Ryan Reynolds, one of the Ryans, where he's like a spokesperson, ambassador for Piaget's, but I've never seen anyone wear Piaget's. And so I'm so concerned. It's almost like, do I get the 676 and get water damage and have to spend like 2k to fix it? Or do I get the 512 and have to service the movement maybe even like 1 year down the road because I'm buying it off Chrono24? There's no warranties or anything. That's the dilemma I'm at right now. And of course, I can just omit all of this, you know, where if I spend 5.5k with import taxes, is going to be like almost 6.5 or even a little higher than that. And then in 2 years, I spend another 2k to try to get it rectified, whether it's water damage or moving getting service. Do I just buy a Luminor Quaranta for 10 and get my name on the paper? And maybe I can also haggle for 2 straps on the side and, I don't know, sparkling water. It's a hard decision to make, but one thing I will tell you for sure, I'm not ready to spend 10k on a Panerai. That money is reserved for the 126234 Rolex Wimbledon Datejust for the Jubilee bracelet and the fluted bezel. Whenever they give me the call, I gotta have that money ready, and I can't be spending it on a Panerai. That's my ramblings about my current situation with Panerai. If you have a wrist like mine and you own a PAM, let me know what reference number it is. I'll definitely look into it. Maybe there's something else out there that I'm not familiar with. And a quick thing, I know there's this reference number, PAM 00050. That's like the first PAM I was looking at because it's like the cheapest one ever. I rolled that one out. It's 42 millimeters too, by the way. I rolled that one out because it's like 15 millimeters thick. So yeah, that's way too much. That's way too thick. That's even thicker than my Tudor Prince Chrono. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one.